Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and this is the Volkswagen GTI for 2024, and it is on its last year before a new update arrives. So we're going to revisit this thanks to our friends at Hall VW to see just how it stacks up to some of its main rivals with the best and the rest. Let's get into it. But before we dive into the video, let's cover what's new for 2024. And obviously a new year means that it's no longer the 40th anniversary trim. Obviously, 2024 is the last year of the manual as well, RIP. All manual cars will get the 380 package. And the graphite gray paint comes standard on the manual cars. You get black accents, black 19-inch wheels, adaptive suspension, that's a North America exclusive. And it doesn't seem like a lot of changes, but 2022 was the new generation for this car, and we're gonna see an update next year in 2025. But with that, let's get into the video. And the first thing that we have to talk about is the price here. And it starts at $31,765, which actually makes it less expensive than the Elantra N. But that's just starting. The Elantra N comes in at $32,900, which yes, is more, but it comes with everything. There's nothing else to add. And it's also got more power. The WRX starts at $30,605, so less, and with all-wheel drive. And the Kona N is probably the closest competitor to this thing, and that starts at about $35,000. But again, that's with everything, and more power, and a little bit more character, but it is spine-shattering with the suspension. So I guess depending on how you cut it, this thing is either a good value, or a little expensive, or right in the middle. So I guess with all those possibilities, it's kind of par for the course then, so maybe it's priced appropriately for some of the excitement and fun that you're getting here. And the next thing you gotta talk about is power, and it kind of hurts me to do this. Under the hood, you have VW's iconic EA888 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. It's in pretty much everything that they make. 241 horsepower here in this GTI and 273 pound-feet of torque. That means 0 to 60 is good for about 6 seconds. It is gonna be faster in this DSG than it is the manual, but here's the thing. Yes, it's more power than a Civic Si, but it is less power than you get in the WRX. It's also less power than you get in like a Kona N from Hyundai or an Elantra N from Hyundai. But let's not get it confused. This EA888 here is a great engine. It's just on paper, not quite as competitive, at least as far as the tune goes. Plus, there's the whole reliability conversation. And then in terms of the rear seats here, they are reasonably spacious for this segment. They're gonna be bigger than what you get in like a Kona N, but compared to something like the sedan equivalents, the WRX, the Elantra N, you are gonna miss out on knee room, but your headroom is actually pretty good. I'm 6'1" for reference, and I've got an inch or two of knee room in front of me, a little bit of headroom, and it's relatively comfortable. Plus you've got some interesting stuff back here, like dual pockets at the top of the back of the front seats and the typical map pocket at the bottom. And this being the Autobahn trim, you get a climate zone, and you get climate vents, and you get a heated rear seat option. Your roof is pano-ish, which is much better than the Kona N, and you get some little personality injected here, like the red stitching and the gray contrast, but ultimately, I don't really have much to complain about back here. It's just that it's a little bit smaller than something like the sedan rivals, but again, how is this thing being compared? And I know we talked about this a bunch last year, so I don't want to harp on it too much, and it's honestly not that bad, but I do want to take a minute to talk about quality, because VW it used to represent that midway point, kind of like Mazda's doing now, between the economy and the luxury. It was really solid build. It was more Audi feeling than its own thing. And more recently, it just doesn't quite feel like that. Now, this still feels really well put together. There's a little creak in the dash if you push on stuff, but not as much as you even get in like a Mercedes. The only reason that I mention it here is just because there's a little bit more cabin noise and things coming in than I was really expecting. And then of course, there's some plastic stuff, but it's again really small. So let's not dwell on it too much. And this 2024 should be the last time that we have to talk about climate controls, but we still got to talk about it. Everything for your climate and everything that you interact with up here is touch sensitive. It's a slider, but you get the same sliders for the sunroof and the same touchy things on the steering wheel also. Sliders for your next track or your volume. But also the infotainment can be a little bit laggy at times, especially when you just start up the car. They have made improvements since the release, to be sure, but on the whole, this still is a driver's car, so the technology should be more of a seamless companion that never takes you away from the experience, and it's just not really the case here. But again, let's wait until next year to see what they've done to address some of these things that we've just talked about. But then let's talk about the driving experience. Now, power is only going to go to the front wheels, and that's kind of okay because there's a magical limited slip differential, ELSD, up front, and it's standard. They call it their VQ or something, I don't know, something technical and engineering, but it is almost as good as the Civic Type R's front diff. You've got DCC adaptive dampers with 15 different levels of customizability. This thing rides better than my BMW M340i. Max boost is like 26.1 PSI. This thing only weighs about 3,100 pounds, so it feels light, it feels chuckable, it feels like it wants you to play with it. You don't have rev matching on your manual transmissions. The competition offers that, but here in the DSG, it's fantastic. It just drives brilliantly. The front diff is magic, it makes great sounds, the balance is impressive, especially if you're not like right at the very, very limit, but like 9.5 tenths and below, it's just perfect. And then there's the looks, and this thing is nice and handsome. Now you get 7 different colors available, which is good. It's more than you've gotten in previous years. Your graphite gray is exclusive to the manual cars though, but up front you've got full LEDs as standard. You've got 5 LEDs in your lower fascia, making kind of an X, which again kind of reminds us of the Porsche. But you won't get these little nuances in the Golf R. You get the classic red line at the top of your grille, and you've got an LED bar under the line in your SC and Autobahn trims, giving it kind of the signature full width LED headlight that we've seen from some of the Volkswagens lately. And around side you get up to 19-inch wheels. You've got red brakes peeking out from behind the wheels on pretty much everything. And from the profile, you can see that this is actually still a pretty small car, at least compared to the rest of everything else these days. You've got full LED taillights, GTI in the center, your VW logo in the center, and that of course still functions as your trunk release, which I just love, and it also hides your reverse camera. You've got dual chrome exhaust, which sound pretty good, and if you want to go up to the Golf R, then you'll get quad tips. Ultimately, I just like the look here. Maybe it's a little softer than it has been in previous generations, but still is nice, clean, handsome, and identifiable as a GTI. And then when you get to your trunk, it's a hatch, it's a GTI. This is kind of the whole point of the GTI. This is what it has stood for since the dawn of time. It is the meshing of performance and practicality, and that's what you get here. With the seats up, you're getting about 20 cubic feet of space. That's pretty good. Better than you're getting in a lot of sedans. And with the seats down, they fold 60-40 with a little ski pass through. You're gonna see about 34.5 cubic feet of space. So it's nice and practical. And I know earlier we talked about some of the interior quality and some of the build stuff, but I wanna talk more specifically about the design here. And that's because it's really cool. You've got a very clean dash, you've got faux carbon fiber on the dash and the doors, you've got red accenting everywhere, even on the steering wheel. Your steering wheel is heated, you've got 3 levels of heated seat, which is great. Your steering wheel is heated to a shocking 3 different levels, which is pretty amazing. And your touch controls, yeah, they're kind of whack, but your start-stop button pulses red until you turn it on, which is just kind of a cool little touch. So while it may not have the Audi level of build materials, it still has plenty of character and plenty of kind of fun things to keep you entertained as you drive along. And then this is a fairly unsexy point in a GTI, but it's 2024, so how can we not talk about fuel economy? It's actually pretty good here. You're getting about 27 mpg combined. That's about in line with an Elantra N, and it's also more than you're gonna get in the WRX. Now granted, the WRX is all-wheel drive, so that hurts it there, but as far as a daily livability, keeping that fuel cost down, GTI is going to help you there. And then I do want to just talk quickly about the transmission because it's great. You've got 2 transmission options here, so I should say both of them are pretty good. You do get a 6-speed stick, although you don't here in moving forward. So I guess that's not really a pro anymore, but it was a pro, and the manual that you used to be able to get was actually better than what BMW is putting in their M cars, but not really the point. The transmission that I have here, 7-speed DSG, it's kind of that little Gillette-style shaver that you see in a Porsche 911. It's just kind of cool, you know? It makes me feel like, oh yeah, I'm in like a sibling or a estranged cousin to a 911. It just feels kind of fun and special and interesting, and the performance from the transmission, this DSG is awesome. And this may not be an Audi, and it may be pretty affordable, but that doesn't mean you're lacking any sort of luxury features here. Your SE trims get the cool plaid cloth seats that are just iconic GTI. It's got GTI stitched in, the seats are heated, the Autobahn seats are full leather, they're heated and cooled here. You get 2-person memory, you get that bigger panoramic-ish roof. You've got a head-up display option, you've got a 10.25-inch digital instrument cluster, which is awesome, and you've got an 8-inch infotainment system as standard. But if you want to go up, you can get a mirrored size to your instrument cluster at 10.25 inches for your center screen. Wireless Apple CarPlay is available. You don't get a 360 camera. I don't really expect that in this tier, but you do get 30 different ambient light colors with different themes that affect the whole rest of the cabin, which just is kind of cool. So again, some surprising character and personality from an otherwise very German brand. And lastly, we'll just touch on safety real quick. You do get IQ Drive as standard, which is very cool. You've also got travel assist as an option, and you even have a dynamic roadside reader. So it'll actually read what the speed limits are and display it on your instrument cluster so you can adjust your speed, or not, accordingly. So let's get into some small things before we wrap up. Now the first is the quirk with the cup holder. Now you can push this button, and obviously you have a little biter there so you can keep your water bottle nice and snug in here. But if you have the big water bottles like myself, you can just put that away, and now you have space for a huge water bottle. You've also got a wireless charger, which kinda works. In your cluster here, you see you have your tachometer, and then you also have a boost pressure gauge. But since they're there together, it's a little confusing knowing when to shift if you're not really listening or paying so much attention. The center screen also has like proximity touch, so as you get closer, more information becomes available. Watch these icons on the right. Put my hand close, and now all of a sudden it says what they are. But the system itself is usually pretty good. It does have like almost like a hesitation or like a slight lag depending on what menus you're jumping around to. On the home system, once it figures itself out and you've done it once, it's rendered once, then it's pretty good. But just going into some of the apps, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, and then, you know, just some software stuff that'll get fixed next year. GTI. Oh, wheel spin. That DSG is awesome. Oh, it's fast. Oh, it's fast. Now here's the annoying thing. There's no like actual shift over to get into manual mode, so I kind of have to do it myself. Go down into second. Left-hander here. Roll on power. Beautiful. Braking. Yes. Yes. Excellent hold. Excellent hold. First. It wants to break traction. Oh! Look at that, 32 PSI. That is kind of cool. That is kind of cool. I don't love, so this is, you can change this. You can change the PSI inside the tach thing, but it's also like the coolest thing to have there. So you're kind of like at odds with yourself a little bit, but it's just fun. 241 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque. Yes, some of the tech stuff isn't perfect, but behind the wheel, when you're driving, especially, you know, driving at 9/10, approaching 10/10, it's so good. The eLSD up front, their VQ or VC or whatever they call it, is just awesome. It sounds good. The balance is good. The steering has some decent weight and a little bit of feedback to it, so a little bit of feel. It's got more feeling than in my BMW M340i, so even in a front-wheel drive car, this is a joy to whip around. And the cool thing is, when I want to chill it out, not Clima, and I go to mode, I go to comfort, then it just chills out. Now I'm just in normal drive. Now the transmission is a little bit softer. The throttle response is softer. There's 15 different ways that I can adjust the suspension. And now it's just comfy. It's just a Golf. And that's awesome. Super good. The only thing that I'm gonna complain about realistically is there's too much cabin noise coming in. There's too much noise from the road coming into the cabin. I don't know why, but that's really my only complaint. Just gonna give this a RAV4 hybrid a little space. But then we are through. Yeah, I could do with a little bit more feel from the steering, but the damping is great, the power is good, the sound drama, the auditory drama is good, the visibility is great. There's really nothing to complain about here. Once they fix, you know, some of the software-y things next year, very, very complete car. But with that, thank you to Hall for letting us have a go once again in the GTI, and we'll see you in the 2025. So that is the best and the rest of the Volkswagen GTI. And I know we talked about some things that were less than ideal, like some of the technology things, but that's exactly what VW is addressing for next year's car. So what you're left with then, once those things are sorted out, is just a beautifully driving and handling hot hatch. And I have to love it for that. So thanks again to our friends at Hall VW for letting us have a go in their GTI before we get into the 2025. We'll see you then.